So it has been a little while since I've posted. It's been 23 days, I do believe. So I thought before I did any other videos, there are a lot of tags and things that I want to catch up on. I thought I would do a little quick reading update to kind of let you guys know what I've been up to with my reading, which isn't actually much. I haven't read too much in the last month. I've been preoccupied with some other things. But one of the books I finished was The Einstein Intersection by Samuel R. Delany. This is one of these old paperbacks that I've been picking up lately. Really awesome cover. Love the cover. This is the back. This book is strange. This is probably the strangest book I have ever read in my life. I thought it was very creative. It's set in the very, very distant future in which it seems like Earth has intersected with a parallel dimension, or maybe with, I don't know if they talked about multiverse back then, but that's another possibility, as it intersected with another universe. Something has happened here because humanity is no longer humanity. It's sort of a crossbreed between some alien race and humans. And as a result, a lot of the children born are not functional beings. Those that are functional are given titles like Lo and Law. Law if you're female and Lo if you are male. And the non-functional beings are put in what's called the cage, which is like a very large sort of enclosed area where the people are kind of kept a little bit like animals. They're not really allowed to interact with society. They're not allowed to reproduce. And people have different sort of gifts, if you will, like along the lines of psychic abilities. It's kind of like magic, but it's not really magic. For instance, some people can sort of travel very long distances instantaneously. Some people can affect the minds of others. And these are all really rare gifts, I should add. So these people are sort of looked upon with a measure of respect and fear. And our main character is Loby, and Loby, his title. And he is in love, and his girl is killed by a character named Kid Death. Kid Death is apparently the only character that they introduce us to anyways in the book who can travel long distances instantaneously. He either has some kind of teleportation ability, or he has the ability to use his mind to insert himself into the minds of others over long distances and to affect the environment around those people. So he can cause people to die instantaneously, and he can cause a lot of other things. He can cause weather to change and things like that. And this Kid Death kills his girl, and so he travels just across this world looking for Kid Death, because he believes that Kid Death can bring her back to life. And he also wants to kill Kid Death, sort of like a vengeance type thing. And he meets a lot of different people along the way, and he encounters a bunch of different strange situations. And the writing in this book is very odd. The author uses a lot of sentence fragments, and he breaks up his paragraphs frequently. For example, he'll start a sentence that has to do with the situation at hand. He'll insert a dash, and then he'll write a thought from the character, or an explanation, or something that has to do with further explaining the situation. And then he'll insert another dash, and then he'll continue on with the original sentence. It's really strange. He also uses a lot of like dots, you know, and he uses a lot of paragraphs. There's just, sometimes it helps, it feels very disjointed, and sometimes that disjointed feeling helps the action of the scene or whatever is happening at that time, and then sometimes it's just really distracting. However, there was also a lot of really pretty writing, and I do have some examples here. Let's see. For example, our character Loby has fallen into what is essentially like a drainage system of some kind, and he's been in a fight. He's been pursued through a type of technological labyrinth by a minotaur type being. It's some kind of a mutated animal is the impression that I get. There's a lot of sort of mutated type animals happening that are closer to being more like people than what the animals we know are. So in this scene, that's what's happening. He's at the bottom of this drainage system, I closed my eyes. I lay there, the tip of the crossbow uncomfortable under my shoulder, the blade handle biting between the bars and my hip. Then the places that were uncomfortable got numb. If you really relax with your eyes closed, the lids slowly pull open. When I finally relaxed, light filled my eyes from the bottoms up like milk poured in bowls. Light? I blinked. Gray light beyond the grating. The gray that sunlight gets when it comes from around many corners. Only I was at least another 2 levels down. I lay behind the entrance to another drain like the one I had leapt through. Then somewhere the roar of the bulls still echoing through these deep stones. I pulled myself up on the bars, elbows smarting, shoulders bruised, and something pulled sore in the bulk of my thigh. I gazed into the room below. At one time there was a floor level with the bottom of this grating, but most of it had fallen in a long and longer time ago. Now, see, I thought it was interesting, his choice of it had fallen in a long and longer time ago. He has a lot of really sort of strange ways of describing things. And just like the light filled my eyes from the bottoms up, like milk poured in bowls, and the gray light and the gray that sunlight gets when it comes from around many corners. I mean, he does a lot of that kind of writing, which I find really interesting and really appealing. So this whole book was sort of this strange mixed bag of disjointed, sort of disorganized sharing of thoughts, and then these really pretty sort of descriptions that are really quite poetic at times. And then he inserts very, very strange things, like reproduction doesn't happen between two people. And speaking of people, actually, not everyone is definitively male or female. There are a number of beings who are male and female at the same time, who can both give birth and impregnate. And I thought that was very interesting. In fact, my main point was that it's not, reproduction isn't always between two people. It can be, and people do have children, but they don't raise their own children. And if their children are non-functional, they go into this cage, and there just is this really cold thread of sort of, throwing away these people who are non-functional, even though they're people and they have feelings and everything. Lobi himself has a child with another character who is in the cage, and that child is killed, and he really doesn't feel too much about it. He doesn't get up. He doesn't like it, but he doesn't get upset. He doesn't cry, that kind of thing. But the main way that reproduction happens are they have these solstice orgies. If ever I needed any confirmation that this book was written in the 60s. So these villages all get together, and the entire group, and they just have these orgies where everybody's just sleeping with everybody else. And it's looked down upon if one of the functional beings don't participate in the orgies. It kind of gives them a bad reputation because they're not sharing their seed. They're not spreading their seed around and helping to create a more viable species, which is the main goal of these beings, is to become a viable species, because over 50% of their children are born non-functional. So it was creative, but there was also these bizarre things like these orgies. At one point there's like a big city, like Lobi's from a small village, and he comes into this big city, and he's never been in a big city before. And in the big city, these solstice orgies are not the big all night long parties, where everybody's having sex with everybody else. They are done by artificial insemination. And he just really looks down upon that. He thinks that's very cold and impersonal. I don't see how orgies are much different, honestly. Yeah, it was a lot of strange things in this book, but like I said, it was really creative, and I really, really did enjoy it. I enjoyed a lot of the writing, even though a lot of it was very disjointed and distracting. So if you are looking for a science fiction read that is different, this is definitely one to look for. The other book I finished was actually a buddy read with my friend Greenie, I Captured the Castle by Dodie Smith. I did not care for this book. I know it's a classic and it's very well loved. However, it wasn't really about anything. It was essentially just a, section of the life of this particular family. They are a peculiar family, and in order to enjoy this book, you have to really like the characters in the family and you have to care about them. And unfortunately, I just didn't. I thought this book was incredibly boring and nothing, like I said, nothing really happens. I didn't care for the narrator very much. But like I said, I know it's a well loved classic and I can see where somebody would like it. There's some really good writing in here. It just didn't suit my personal tastes. So I was sad that I didn't care for it. My friend Greenie loved it though. Oh yeah, before I go on to what I'm currently reading, I wanted to point out some gifts that I received from my friend Sandy. It's one of the things she sent me was this beautiful little succulent. I absolutely love it. It was real tiny when it came, and it has absolutely thrived in my book room because it needs indirect sunlight. It has just really taken off and it's gotten really pretty. She sent me a candle with it, which, you know what, I forgot to grab the candle. The candle rather is in my cabinet, but it came with this little cute box of matches. Look, it's like a triangle shape. Isn't that funny? Yeah, and it's like just old-fashioned matches. I thought that was so neat. And then it also included this little keychain, which I suspect might be a logo for the Etsy or Etsy, how do you pronounce that? The Etsy shop that she ordered it from. So I thought those were really cute. And then here just recently, she sent me some book sleeves. I didn't have any book sleeves, and I had been meaning to buy some, but I had never gotten around to it. And Sandy somehow magically just knew that I needed book sleeves. So she sent me this one for bigger size books. Really, really like this. I've been using the heck out of this one. And then just the other day, a second one came, and it's for smaller, like paperback books, and it's really, really soft and fluffy. It has a little button right here. Oh, the other one is a zipper. This one's a button. It's got the little pink inside. Yeah, I really like these book sleeves. This one will be perfect for for all these old paperbacks I've been picking up and reading. Now, as for what I have currently been reading, one of the books I have actually started but I haven't continued reading is After the Winter by Guadalupe Nettel and translated by Rosalind Harvey. I read about, let's see, 20 pages of this book, and so far I really, really like it. So I am going to continue reading it. I'm just not going to continue reading it right now because there are some other books that I want to get through before I finish that one. The other book I'm reading is Close to Critical by Hal Clement. Again, it's one of these old paperbacks that I've been obsessed with lately. I'm not even halfway through this one. I'm ashamed to say I've been reading this one for like 2 or 3 weeks and I still haven't finished it. But so far this is really interesting. I'll be anxious to talk about this when I finish it. Another book I'm reading was actually a buddy read with Matt over at the Paperback Junkie, which I haven't quite finished. We both like Charles Bukowski. And we decided to buddy read You Get So Alone at Times That It Just Makes Sense, and it's a book of poetry. About halfway through that, and I'm really, really enjoying this, and so I'll be talking about that when I finish it. And then my mother was a huge Twilight fan back when that whole Twilight craze was happening. She would stand outside the movie theaters dressed in her Twilight gear at midnight to go to the early premieres and wait in line. I used to really like to tease her about her Twilight fandom. But you know that Stephanie Myers wrote Midnight Sun, which is the Twilight book only from Edward's point of view instead of Bella's. So I thought it would be fun to like buddy read that with her. I didn't read that series. I read the first one, but I didn't read the rest. It didn't particularly thrill me. It was fine. I liked it fine, but I just didn't care to go on. I did watch the movies though, mostly because my mother was so into it. But yeah, my mom and I started reading this, and believe it or not, she DNF'd it. I got 27 pages in, and my mom DNF'd it. She decided she didn't want to read it at all, which I find so funny. So far, I was actually liking it better than Twilight, and I will finish it because I did start it, and I wasn't not enjoying it. So I'm gonna finish this in the next month or two. Maybe I'll get back to it. The other book I'm gonna read here pretty soon is oh gosh, I forgot how to pronounce it. Nigel's Saga, and I'm sure that's not right, which is for Sagalong. I have not participated in Sagalong. Of course, I've only been doing BookTube for less than 2 years, a year and a half, I think. Yeah, that sounds right, a year and a half. However, so I've never had the opportunity to participate in this. But I want to, and I've never read any Icelandic saga, so I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to do that. So I picked this book up, and I'm really, really looking forward to reading that. I'm actually getting kind of anxious to start it, but I want to finish I want to finish that How Clement book before I do. So, oh, one more thing to tell you about. I almost forgot. So I've been going to Kansas City about once a month, and the time before last, I decided I was going to look for Steve Donahue's always talking about the Analog science fiction magazine, and I've also heard Asimov's mentioned. I don't know if he mentioned that or if I just saw that someplace else, but I decided to go to the Barnes and Noble and look for those magazines, and I found them. So I have one of each, and I'm going to be checking these out here pretty soon too, so I'm looking forward to that. Okay, I think that's everything. I'll just end the video there, and then I'm going to try to catch up on my book tags. I think I've been tagged like 10 times.